Guess who made his return last night? Playoff P, Paul George, showing
KD.
up and showing out in Game 3. Will it be enough, though, to rally the Clippers? The Sixers are talking Ben Simmons' future. Would it be a smart move for Philly to trade him this offseason? And Scottie Pippen says Kevin Durant doesn't have what LeBron James has. Fighting words on a Friday morning here on First Things First. Good morning, everyone. Jenna Wolfe, Nick Wright. Brandon Marshall, Kevin Wilds. Nick, how well is that going to sit with Kevin Durant? I'm going to go with not very.
Well, you just log on to the old Twitter.com and you see how it's sitting on him. Katie already firing off the takes. We'll get into it. I'm excited for it.
No,
By the way,
not.
Scottie,
No, he's
right.
not.
Of course
no,
you
he's
are.
not.
Of course you are. All right, we'll get to all that. We got to start this morning, though. Game 3, Western Conference Finals, Suns, Clippers. Hey, remember, Game 2 went sideways in crunch time for Paul George. He knew it. He knew he had to be better last night, and he came out and he was better. 27, 15, and 8 for Paul George. For the Suns, they got CP3 back. He and Devin Booker combined, though, to shoot just 10 of 40 from the field. That's not good enough. As the Clippers win, they take Game 3. Here was Paul George on if Game 3's win felt any different than the losses in Games 1 and 2.
No, I didn't feel different. It was just another approach. We knew we had to take care of home court. And, you know, it's just a scrappy team. We have to match their physicality. I thought we did that. We have to match their scrappiness. I thought we did that. And that's really the key. We can't allow this team to play harder than us. And I thought that was just the way we approached tonight.
They outplayed us tonight. You know what I mean? We didn't make shots. You could tell they had, you know, a lot more energy. And I got to be better. I shot terrible. You know what I mean? I got to pick up the pace. We'll be ready Game 4.
Chris Paul owning his performance last night. But, Nick, I want to talk some Paul George. Did he and the Clippers convince you that they can still win this series?
Well, listen, I've never said they can't win the series. So, yeah, I guess I'm still convinced they can. I do not believe they will. And despite the win last night, I feel very similarly to how I felt on this show yesterday, which is that the Clippers are running on empty, even though I said yesterday I thought they could win Game 3. Like, typically, if you're going to lose a series, say in 5, it's because the one game you win is the home game in Game 3 when you're desperate and the other team is maybe slightly a little relaxed having the 2-0 lead. Now, I don't think anyone should be relaxed against these Clippers with a 2-0 lead because we saw the Dallas series, we saw the Utah series, and credit to the Clippers who have now essentially played 5 elimination games in these playoffs, and they're 5-0. They've 3 times faced a 3-0, potential 3-0 deficit. They've answered the bell in all 3, including in the very first one when they hadn't yet won a playoff game this year, and they were down 30-11 to Dallas and came storming back. When they blew out the Mavs, and then last night when they were in control from start to finish. But Brandon, Paul George played well last night, but when you look at him for this series, he's yet to have a good shooting game. And I'm not saying I'm not killing him at all. But he's shooting 38% for the series. Right, from 3, 3 for 11 from 3, like a bunch of 9 for 26, 10 for 27. He knows he has to be high volume, but I just think the minutes, the playing every other day for a month is catching up with them. They got the Suns when CP3 was rusty and Devin Booker had an off night. I don't think they are going to be able to do to the Suns what they did to Dallas and what they did to Utah, despite the fact that they've proven quite a bit this postseason, Brandon.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Look, I'm happy for Paul George. I'm happy that he's not only playing well throughout the playoffs. Now, obviously, there's ups and downs in games and quarters, but for the most part, he got that playoff P off his back. And then to bounce back from missing 2 free throws in a critical moment in a huge moment, and probably in one of the biggest moments in his career, and then come back and get this game and do what he did says a lot. But at the end of the day, I just think the best of the Clippers, whatever is left of the Clippers without Kawhi coming back and being half of Kawhi, not expecting that, and then the best of the Suns, the Suns win. Like, that's just what it comes down to. I don't think, Wilds, that you got Booker and CP3 going 1 for 1,000 again. I just don't see that happening. So, you know, the Clippers, great game, a bounce-back game. Obviously, still have some left in the tank. I don't know how much. But at the end of the day, no Kawhi Leonard at 100%. The Suns are too much.
So here's the thing about Kawhi not playing the game, watching from the suite. I think in a way that unlocks Paul George a little bit, Nick. I think Paul George has had some bad shooting nights. It wasn't great last night, but he can't go anywhere else. There's no one else to really defer to. Reggie Jackson's a nice player, but Paul George is not going to just keep feeding Reggie Jackson. He has to put up a lot of shots, and even if he's missing them, Paul George is still playing with a confidence that I think puts way off P in the rear window. You see, like when he hit the half-court shot and he's like kissing to the crowd, he's like a gladiator champion. Right. I just loved it. I thought he was playing so confident. And after the game, and again, there is a cottage industry of like Paul George body language expert that I guess I'm a part of now. But the guy looks confident. He doesn't look like a guy who is going to be like, you know, I need to shoot better. It's on me. Yeah, I know you got the win, but either way, the guy's missing a lot of shots, but I still think you see that confidence in him. And with Ty Lue's adjustments, and we know that they lost game 2 by 0.8 seconds, I would be very, very fearful of this Clippers team if I was the Suns.
So I knew you were going to be, you've been consistent in these playoffs that guys don't overreact to home teams winning games and call series over, and you've been correct in large part. And all that's happened in this series so far is the home team has won games. And your point on Ty Lue, I of course agree with, and you see it again. Zubats had been a non-factor, basically a net negative for most of this playoff run, and now he is getting major minutes, and he is having a major impact in trying to mitigate some of what Ayton does. So I appreciate and I respect all of that. But Brandon, it is just incredibly difficult for me to see, watch a game where Kawhi Leonard is in the suite with his adorable children and feel like the Clippers are going to win a series against a championship caliber team. Like, the Suns were going to lose eventually. The Suns had won 9 straight playoff games. The list of teams to win in modern NBA history, or the last decade or so, to win 10 straight playoff games, it's just the Steph KD Warriors and LeBron's Cavs. I think they each did it once or twice. That's it. You don't reel off double-digit playoff winning streaks, which is what the Suns were trying to do as of last night. So I just think it's a bridge too far for the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard. And I do not think, the other thing I took away from seeing him in the suite, Brandon, you tell me as an athlete, I don't think he's close to coming back. No. I think if he's close to coming back, he's on the bench. I do not think if he's in the suite, he could return for a game 5.
Well, what's going on? What's going on? Can somebody please update me and tell me what's going on with his knee? You go back to when he was in San Antonio, like this whole thing when he sat out a whole year. We didn't know exactly what was going on and severity of his injury. He seems to be a guy that keeps things extremely tight. His camp, whoever's around him, they don't want anybody to know what's going on with his health, what's going on with his body. It's the same thing. This knee, there's reports, is it an ACL or is it a sprain? Like, what's going on? For them to not come out and say, look, it's day to day, for them to not come out and say it's a sprain or grade 2 this, grade 1 that, that is scary. I don't think we're going to see Kawhi. Think about it. They were down 0-2. And Kawhi, where was he? He was sitting in the stands. He was in the box.
Brandon,
when you're in this situation, go ahead.
As an athlete, I just want to know, like, do you take anything from the fact that he wasn't on the bench? Like, is that as a precaution?
No.
Like, in case someone runs into the bench? No, not like as a bad teammate. I'm talking about the severity of the injury. Is that like, well, sometimes guys fall into the bench? Like, what did you think when you saw he was in the building but not on the bench?
Right. Privacy. Exactly what I just said. He's just trying to keep everything tight. That's what he did back when he was playing with the Spurs. He's done it his entire career. If you're standing on the sideline and you see me walk to the bench, you see me stand up because there's a timeout, you're going to see, what I'm dealing with. So that's the thing that scares me the most, Jenna, about this Kawhi situation, is that you just don't know what he's dealing with, and it doesn't seem likely that he's coming back.
What you didn't see is he had blackout curtains on the suite, so you really couldn't see, and he couldn't see, which was really odd for everyone. Clippers almost won Game 2. They did win Game 3, so say what you will, they are back in this series. We got to talk some Dallas Mavericks now. They're working on a deal to make Jason Kidd their next coach. How should Luka feel about the hire? How should Nick feel about how Luka feels? We'll discuss how we all feel next. First things first on a Friday morning. Mavericks are...
What's the KPIs and metrics on that?
Mavericks reportedly finalizing a deal to make Jason Kidd their next head coach. The Hall of Famer Kidd spent 8 seasons where? In Dallas as a player, including on that 2011 title team. Brandon, Jason Kidd is the next Mavs head coach. Should have Luka Doncic feeling blank. What's your mask?
Ooh, this is like stepson. Man. Look, Nick, what do you say? This is your large adult Slovenian son? Is that what you're saying here?
You
That's
nailed
what you've been saying?
You nailed it.
You're a jealous type of guy. And this is all bad for you. You're about to lose your son to another man. That's what's going to happen, because you got a coach, Rick Carlisle, who just left Dallas. They were there for 13 years, and now he's in Indiana. And in his press conference, he's saying, I hope Jason Kidd gets the gig, because they are 1 and 2 in the same when it comes to person and also the qualities on the court. So you are about to lose your son, because these two guys together is the perfect match. It's the perfect type of situation. So we're going to have to switch out these little pictures, put Jason Kidd's picture right there, because this is happening, and Luka is going to fall in love with Jason Kidd. It's over for you. How do you feel about it? Now you have this blended family.
It's over.
Listen, I got no problem with blended families, but I don't like this at all. And we can take this off. This really bothers Jenna in a visceral way. She took her glasses off just so she could not see the screen. There we go. I know, Jen. I saw you do it. I saw you do it. This ain't great. Wilds, I've never quite seen a guy step down suddenly to go take a new job and then be like, by the way, here's who my successor should be. And one of the reasons Rick Carlisle reportedly is leaving, or left, I should say, was because he and Luka didn't get along. And so the idea that Rick Carlisle, for a player that I don't think he loved coaching, would be like, hey, here's his perfect next coach. And then they hire that guy. I don't love it. When LeBron went to the Lakers and everyone's like, oh, Jason Kidd's going to get the job. I didn't love that. I just would like the instance or the example that anyone can bring me that Jason Kidd is a good NBA coach. I've never seen it. I watched him in Brooklyn. Watched him in Milwaukee. This makes me incredibly nervous for Luka. And so I think the Mavs historically are a pretty smart organization, Brandon, but I don't love this hire at all. I don't love it at all.
Listen, no, here's the deal. I can understand that, right? Like, a lot of times when you see these splits or these breakups, they're never nice. But I think this is a good split, and I think Rick Carlisle's really trying to do something good for the Mavericks and Luka. Now, obviously, there's some type of tension and static between the two, and that's what I think he's saying. Not about the qualities, but like, man, there's something off a little bit with Jason Kidd and Luka, and these two together, you're talking about a veteran guy. He could potentially come in and help mold and shape Luka, because he's like, look, I've been there, I've done that. Don't make the same mistakes as me. So I think that's Rick Carlisle kind of trying to be good in a way, but also take a little shot.
Okay. Well, I've got to think
right.
that Luka 100% endorses this. I don't think Cuban would make a move on a head coach that Luka didn't sign off on. And I don't know what evidence you want, Nick, either wins and losses or some like great out of bounds play.
Yeah.
But we do know that like guys want to be coached by Jason Kidd. Giannis loved Jason Kidd, was like heartbroken when he left Milwaukee. We know LeBron wanted him to be the coach. Like, well, you can't be head coach, you can be the assistant coach. That dynamic was always weird with Vogel. And we know Dame wanted him in Portland. So I've got to think if they make the call in that Luka's totally on board. The only other weird thing here, Nick, and give me your take on this. They're like, well, we hired Dirk and, Michael Finley to give a recommendation. Like, how about Jason Kidd? It's like, all right, the deck is sort of stacked, of course. They're all former teammates. They're going to be rooting for Jason Kidd to get the job. So I do kind of like the sort of like, it's almost like a college football program. Like, we are going to hire Mavericks and former Mavericks to sort of lead the new franchise.
Right.
So I thought that was an interesting.
I kind of like that. I like that. I respect that.
And I do understand the argument that right now, who are the most successful coaches in basketball? Former players, almost across the board. Who's left? Nate McMillan, Monty Williams, Ty Lue. Steve Kerr obviously has done an excellent job. So I do get the idea of we want to go with the former player, particularly the former point guard mold. And you're right. Players love him. I don't know Jason. I obviously never played for Jason. But just from watching how well coached his teams are, it just seems like I didn't look at those Nets or Bucks teams and thought, well, that's a really well coached team. And so it just makes me nervous for Luka. What's up, Brandon?
You forgot Steve Nash when you talked about former players as great coaches.
Great
you
call.
forgot that guy.
It's a great call.
You want to add him to the list?
No, I didn't. I didn't, actually. I didn't forget him.
He remembered, though, that he didn't play for. Time for the weird and the wonderful from our national pastime. Vladdy Guerrero Jr. retaking the Major League Baseball home run lead with a moonshot last night. Count them up. That's 24 now on the season for Vladdy Jr. Pretty wonderful stuff. Wilds, what else you got for us?
Oh, we'll start with the weird. Cleveland and Minnesota. Eddie Rosario steals second. The ball goes into the outfield. He thinks about going to third. Like, you know what? I won't. Boom, gets tagged out.
What?
But good news. Good. This story ends well. Eddie also had a 2-run single in the 8th that won the game for Cleveland. So you know what?
Well.
This was bad.
How's
but
that
it turns out
well?
Because he ended up winning the game with his bat. That's why. Moving on to the wonderful.
No, you can't do
Royals
this,
at
wow.
Yankees, bottom of the third. Odor with a pop-up to third. Alberto gets underneath it. Uh-oh. And you know what I always say, and I always tell Nick this. Nick, bring your pop-up sunglasses to our Central Park softball games. The other day, we played the News Hour with Jim Lair, had a similar play, and Nick dropped it. So that's why I always say, bring your pop-up sunglasses.
You guys are on a team?
Yeah, we're all on a team. Played News Hour with Jim Lair on Wednesday. Finally,
Literally
moving on to the
nobody
weird.
has told me.
Cubs-Dodgers throw a combined no-hitter. Everyone's excited. 4 pitchers. Everyone except Craig Kimbrell. You know why? Kimbrell had no idea it was happening. Take a listen.
You close it out for the Cubs' first ever combined no-hitter. Of all the accomplishments, success that you have had to be a part of a game like this, what was that like?
It feels great. I'm not gonna lie. I had no idea until the last out.
That's weird and wonderful from the national
Wilds.
pastime. Yeah, buddy.
Wilds, I hate to step on your segment.
Go ahead.
That's not a no-hitter, man. The combined no-hitters are not no-hitters.
Ain't getting hit.
Major League Baseball, we need to make this change. 7-inning games where one guy throws a no-hitter, that should count. These combined 4 pitchers came in, and that's not a no-hitter. The Cubs do not have 17 no-nos in history. It's not a no-hitter. Craig Kimbrell, you know why he didn't know it was going on? Because it wasn't going on. He was the only one who was right about the situation. Not a no-hitter.
You may have a point.
Nick.
Jenna, just for the record, the other day when we played Top Chef and we combined for a no-hitter, all 4 of us, that counted as a no-hitter. I didn't see any reason that was an issue.
All 3 of us. Fine. Jenna's not on the softball team. Jenna's not on the first
can we
things
talk
first
about the biggest, most outrageous thing to come out of this segment is that I have not been invited to play on our team. on our company sophomore team.
Okay, we're gonna play.
I played third base in high school.
Because you just want to do jumping jacks.
Jenna,
you just want to do jumping jacks in
freshman year, sophomore year, junior year.
Do jumping jacks.
All league. Okay.
Jenna's on the side doing burpees.
We're done. That is not true. I know when to bring it all together. I know when to hone it in.
Jenna, come if you're up. You're at bat, Jenna.
Talking Ben Simmons and his future in Philadelphia. Is it time for the Sixers to trade the former #1 overall pick? We'll toss that around next. I am a very good softball player. It's outrageous. Back here talking the future of Ben Simmons in Philadelphia, because the present ain't great. That after Ben's brutal showing in that second-round series against the Hawks. And, well, let's face it, after now a couple years of failing to take that next step offensively, Fox Bet Sportsbook has the odds on his next team, potentially, or where he'd be next season. Sixers still the favorites, followed by Portland, Washington, then OKC, and San Antonio. So, Nick, Simmons stock low right now. Would it be a smart move for the Sixers to trade him this offseason?
Potentially, but as the world sits today, no. What Philadelphia needs to do, and let me preface this because I think people know that I'm close with Daryl and that I'm also close with some people in Ben Simmons' camp. I haven't talked to any of them about this. So this isn't me reporting anything. This is just my informed opinion on it. I think that Philadelphia is totally fine and would be smart to wait and see who the next disgruntled all-star caliber player is and then play the Ben Simmons card. Now, obviously, Ben is represented by the best and most powerful agency in basketball, so you're not going to be able to send him just anywhere. Okay. They will have a say in that. However, what Wild? Show me the lie.
It's kind of true.
I mean, it's true. It's accurate. I mean, it's just nothing but facts this morning, my friend. So they're going to have a say in that, meaning like if, for instance, if all of a sudden De'Aaron Fox came available, I think that would be a great fit for Philadelphia. I also am not sure that Clutch, and again, I haven't talked to him, would want or allow Ben to be shipped to Sacramento. And so I do think there's going to have to be some needle threading here. But you don't sell an asset at its low point. And I don't mean to be, dehumanizing and talk about this guy as an asset, but you understand what I mean. Ben Simmons made the All-NBA team 1 year ago. He was second in Defensive Player of the Year voting this year. I like C.J. McCollum a lot, but if you end up trading Ben Simmons for C.J. McCollum, when you were this close to trading Ben Simmons for James Harden, you will be getting 60 cents on the dollar for him. That is not Daryl Morey's history nor his MO. And Brandon, I don't think they look at it as the guy can never play another game in a Sixers jersey. So do I think he'll finish his contract with Philadelphia? I don't. But I also don't think they are rushing to make a rash decision when they know this is their best and biggest chess piece to move for this part of the Embiid era.
See, my POV is just slightly different than yours, but we're saying the same thing. If they trade Ben Simmons, then they are rushing. But you're talking about value with your head. You're head on, right? You're hitting it right on the head. I'm talking about more so development. A lot of times when our guys get to the pro league, we always think that they're supposed to be exactly what they're supposed to be. What about development? What about having a kid that is only 24, 25, and helping him go to the next level? So we think that when you make it to the NBA, when you make it to the NFL, that, oh, you're right here. This is it for you. You know everything. You're supposed to have all the technique down. And they do a little coaching. No, you need to put your hands on these players and you need to help develop them. Now, one, the player needs to want help, and the player has to have the work ethic, the want to get out there and to ascend to another level. But I'm saying that because in these leagues, it's so twisted, it's so backwards. We get these young guys, they're 22, 23, 24 years of age, and as soon as they have, 1 or 2 bad years, oh, it's time to move on. Or if they don't ascend as fast as you want them to, then it's time to move on. We know the potential that's in Ben Simmons. On the defensive side, probably got some more room to grow, but he's right where he needs to be. On the offensive side, you're not asking him to be Trae Young. You're not asking him to be Luka or a Steph Curry. All you're asking this kid to do is shoot the ball. That's all you need. If you can take a couple threes, you can pull up from mid-range or the elbow, you are now dangerous, and you're now taking us from a contender to a championship, a real championship team. So for you to have Sam Cassell on the sideline as assistant coach, that's the guy that you need to pair with him and say, let's get it together this offseason and really develop. And then you go into the season and see how things go. Now, Wiles, here's the deal, right? So with these two scenarios, you got this one thing like, all right, here's Ben Simmons, and this is where he's at today. Here's his value. And on the other end, it's like, if I can get through to him, this is where he can be. It's on them to pick which path they want to go. If I am the 76ers, I am doing everything in my power to help this kid develop, because if he can get there, he's a major asset.
So the biggest mystery of this, Brandon, is does Ben Simmons want to shoot the ball? If the answer is no, then Daryl's probably going to have to say, like, all right, that's not what we need right now. You might be better off with a fresh start where they can build a team around a point guard who doesn't want to shoot. And look, Brett Brown lost his job, and one of the things that he said going into the year is like, I want to see Ben shoot 1-3 a game. And Ben didn't do it. Nick, the major challenge for, like, all levels of basketball is like, hey, that guy's shooting too much. I don't care if you're playing playground basketball or if you're in the NBA. It's like, man, this guy sure does love to shoot. Ben Simmons is doing the opposite. So I think that there's been a narrative out there like, oh, he's played his way out of Philadelphia. Like, they won't stand for that. I think that's nonsense. The whole Philly fan base understood the process. It's the whole mantra of the team. They understood, like, all right, we need to get from here to there. If Philly will embrace honesty about what Ben needs to do for a shot, like, hey, guys, you know what? Ben feels uncomfortable, so if he misses a few shots, can we cheer him? You know what the answer would be? Yes. But no one wants to be lied to. They don't want to hear Ben Simmons in the pregame or post-game saying, like, you know what, I should have been more aggressive in the fourth quarter, and then the next game come out and also shoot nothing. So that makes no sense. So you have to be honest with the Philly fans, and they got to want to shoot.
But here's the thing, Wilds. Here's the thing. This is what happens. As a player, you sit there, you're eating your breakfast, you get in there at 8 in the morning, team meeting is at 8:30, so you're sitting in the cafeteria, you have FS1 on, and you're watching Wilds, you're watching Nick, you're watching Jenna talk about, your game or the sport, and you take that in. Now, a lot of players say, look, I don't watch it, I don't read it. But the reality is it's impossible for it not to come on your desk or for you not to consume it. What you should do is be able to take it in and make sure in a healthy way you know how to navigate through what you're hearing, what you're reading. But we saw this with James Harden. James Harden sat there, and James Harden listened years after years say he dominates the basketball too much. He dribbles the air out of the ball, and he doesn't play any defense. So what did we see happen last year in the bubble? He totally started playing defense. He started dishing the ball a little bit too much. Why? Because he hears it, right? And he knows he needs to work on that. So now we're talking about Ben Simmons, Jenna. Ben Simmons is hearing this, and this might be the moment where he's like, you know what? It's a humbling moment for me, but it's also one of those moments where I got to take my game to a whole nother level because I don't want to get shipped out of here, and I don't want to go to, Sacramento, wherever Nick said they might send him, right? So this is a guy right now in a pivotal moment.
I don't buy it. I'm sorry that I don't buy it. Why?
No.
Because we've been having the exact conversation for 4 years. This isn't his first year in the league. I know that first year he was hurt. It's not the first year and he didn't shoot. It's not the second year and he's a little gun-shy of shooting. It's not the he's been doing this. They've tried. Brett Brown tried to work with him. I'm sure there have been tons of guys that have tried to work with him in the offseason. Okay, so he made the adjustment. For whatever reason, Ben Simmons, it doesn't appear to want to make the adjustment, Nick.
Right.
So
like, how many more years are we going to say this is the year he and Joel Embiid are gonna gel? How many years are we going to give that chemistry an opportunity to work?
Well, we might be on the last one, or we might have just had the last one. However, the end of this season was different in this regard. If we go through, you know, the history of the Sixers as actual contenders, 2019, Ben played well in that postseason. Joel played well. They lost in a 7-game battle to a barely better team that went on to win the championship. They left that feeling good. 2020, Ben got hurt. And so you're not saying, oh, it's not going to work. And then in 2021, all year long, I mean, the Sixers were the 1 seed, everything. I understand he's not shooting, Jenna, but let me explain the point. Everything seemingly was going well, and then it all blew up at the end, with the biggest reason being Ben Simmons' refusal to shoot. That represents a fork in the road moment. And I know later in the show we're going to talk about the Scottie Pippen GQ interview, and we're going to talk about the KD part of it. But Scottie said something very interesting about Ben versus Giannis in that same interview, where he said Ben is afraid of humiliation, Giannis isn't. That Giannis can airball 2 free throws and the next time do the exact same thing and say, if I airball him again, so be it. I'm going to fail on this stage, whatever. It is absolutely clear that Ben, I feel like this is resonating with you, Brandon, and you can speak on it.
Yes,
if you've been a great athlete since you were 7 years old,
you
but
can't be fearful of the lights. You can't. Nick, you 100%. You can't be afraid to fail in front of 30,000 cheering fans and a couple million. And that's what it seems to be standing in the way of Ben. And so there needs to be some work there. And I truly believe he will work on that if he has the right people around him. And then also, I've seen it so many times, because that's the narrative, that's what we believe. And sometimes it is. Sometimes, like, guys just never work on what they need to work on. They're just blinded by their challenges. But I've seen it so many times, guy watch television or read a newspaper clip, go out there after practice, before practice, get extra catches or do extra stuff, and they're working on the very things that you guys and we're talking about. But I truly believe that's what's going to happen this offseason with Ben.
And the question, Jenna, to put a button on it, is this: was the way this season ended more humiliating for Ben and personally jarring than it would be to go 0 for 8 from mid-range jump shots during a game? Like, is the fear of failure, does he actually help get over it because his refusal to go outside of his comfort zone is what caused this failure? He's never had a moment like this. He's always had us talking about it. It's always been a subject, but it's never come to a head the way it did. I think Philly believes and hopes this helps get him over the hump, and I think they certainly believe they're going to give a shot to find out if it has, because his value's not going to get lower than right now. So you might as well see if he can rebuild it a bit, even if you think the Embiid-Simmons combo isn't a great fit, to wait and see if you can get a great player in return for him, Jenna.
I want to believe you. I hope it's the case, but you'll forgive me if I don't, because I haven't seen any sign of it yet. We got to take a turn, talk some Clippers. Paul George got it done in Game 3. Does he have enough left in the tank to rally the Clippers past the Suns? We'll discuss after a short break. First things first. Back here with Chris Broussard. So there's a beef brewing between Scottie Pippen and Kevin Durant. Started a few days back with Pippen's comments to Vinny Goodwill, continued yesterday when Pippen's GQ article dropped and he started dishing on the NBA, taking some shots at KD in the process. Among other things, he said this: LeBron James would have figured out how to beat the Bucks, and he wouldn't have been exhausted, and he may not have taken the last shot. But LeBron ain't KD, and KD ain't LeBron. KD is a shooter, a scorer, but he doesn't have what LeBron has. Durant needs to learn how to utilize his teams. He has to learn how to set up his teammates to be better. That's it. As great as he is, there's a cap to his talent. Well, it didn't take long for KD to fire back. KD said, didn't the great Scottie Pippen refuse to go in the game for the last second shot because he was in his feelings? His coach drew up the play for a better shooter. He continued with this, Durant. This guy, Scott, also wanted to enjoy his summer, so he chose to rehab during the season. Scottie Pippen, they followed Phil, not you. All right, Broussard, what do you make of the Scottie Pippen-Kevin Durant beef?
Woo! Well, Scottie Pippen is obviously a huge LeBron James fan, almost as much as Nick Wright. And I get it, because there's a lot of Scottie Pippen in LeBron's game. You know, they both like point forwards, facilitators, great defenders. They pass, they're tremendous passers. They play the entire game and both scored at a high level. Obviously, LeBron at a much higher level than Scottie, but still, similarities in their game. And I agreed with Scottie earlier in the week when he said KD still has to learn how to will a team to victory. He has not proven that. That's the one thing left for him to prove, that he can will his own team to victory. But in this case, in this GQ article, Scottie went too far. To almost blame that Game 7 loss on Kevin Durant? Right. I mean, Kevin Durant was spectacular. Right. And to say he has to utilize his teammates weren't giving him any help. Durant's not the type to just not try to get anybody else involved. They were running from the ball. They were giving it to Kevin Durant at half court and then going over and standing and watching him create something, Kevin. Go ahead and do something. He was out there on an island. And I don't like Kevin Durant is always been a team player, maybe to a fault. You know, I mean, in Oklahoma City, in Golden State, and in Brooklyn, he is as much of a team player as LeBron James. Now, he's not the facilitator that LeBron is, but if I was a superstar, I'd rather play with KD. It's easier to play with KD because he doesn't dominate the ball. If I'm a role player, I'd rather play with LeBron because LeBron's going to set me up and get me in positions I can't get myself in. But I just think he went too far in saying KD's not a team player. And then when you throw shots like this, you got to be ready to take them back, because I know Nick likes to act like Scottie Pippen was Kobe Bryant so he can diminish Jordan. No. But he wasn't. He got blemishes on his record, and Scottie told no lies other than to say they followed Phil, not you. They followed Michael. Not
KD told no lies, you mean? You mean KD told no lies. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, KD told no lies, other than...
Yeah, I mean, look, this is bad. I don't respect it. I don't like it. You know, sitting here on television as a former player, you have to be able to lean in and call it how you see it. But I'm always going to be pro player. I'm always going to give the player the benefit of the doubt because I sat in their seats. I sat in those locker rooms, and you understand it. There's outside of that locker room, people they're not going to get it, not going to understand it. So for Scottie Pippen to actually stand up and kind of demean KD, and you talked about the Game 7 and just comparing play. Like, you don't do that. There's a way of doing it without disrespecting the game and disrespecting a player. Because, like you said, you're opening yourself up to criticism as well. So there can be an argument that if you remove Michael Jordan, you probably never win a championship. It's a great argument. Like, yeah, you're walking around as a great, and you are great. and we respect you as one. But now if you want to talk about it, let's talk about it. So I don't like it. And anytime I'm in these conversations, what I do is I always give a disclaimer. It's like, yo, when I was in this situation, you know, this is what I did. But here, boom, now I hold the guy accountable. I feel like he just went way too far. It was disrespectful to the games, disrespectful to KD. And some people may look at me and say, well, Brandon, what are you talking about? It's just a simple conversation. Well, no, it isn't. There's a fraternity. There's a way that players are supposed to talk about players. There's a way that we're supposed to criticize players. Now, you don't, not criticize a player. There's a way of holding them accountable. That's all I'm saying, Nick. I just don't like it. Yeah. He went a little too far.
And I understand that. And I also, listen, I am not Wilds. I'm not engaging in a lot of the kind of tertiary Kevin Durant slights that have been going on since Game 7 because I thought he was brilliant in Games 5, 6, and 7. Now, Wilds, you know me, I always kind of have like takes, like future takes on the simmer. Like, let's make sure it's a little warm in case we got to get there. Now, I will tell you, if somehow, some way, Trae Young, with no other All-Stars, finds a way to beat the Bucks team that KD couldn't beat with Kyrie Irving for 4 games, James Harden for 3 games, well, then maybe some of the KD slander will be moved to the front burner. Because there's a future take of, wait, the Hawks could beat the Bucks, but the Nets couldn't? What does that say? But we're not there yet, and I think the Bucks are going to win the series. What I think Scottie said, though, that was the most interesting part of this, is what he said about what really hurt Kevin Durant, which is coaching. Can we show it?
That's right.
Because this is a great point by Scottie. Here's the quote. Durant was so exhausted, he couldn't go to the bucket. I'm going to be honest. Felt like Steve Nash should have put KD on the block. Just let him sit there and throw passes so he could rest. But he kept him at the top of the floor where they were getting all up under him. It wasn't fair, but that's just coaching. Steve Nash is an inexperienced coach, so he got to know he wore KD down. And I think that is absolutely right. You can't, Wilds, prevent Kevin Durant's injury. And they did Kyrie Irving's injury, pardon me. Yep. And they did everything they could to give James Harden as much time and maintenance as they could during the regular season, in the playoffs. They did everything they could. That hamstring just went bad on him at the wrong time. And listen, sometimes a guy like Joe Harris is going to prove to be, and maybe he will prove this to be a regular season player. And you just got to deal with it. Like, it just happens sometimes, right? The guy, what they could have done a better job of is making sure that if you're going to play KD the entire game, he has spots within the game to rest. That is one thing LeBron had mastered by his last year in Cleveland. Like, all right, if you're going to need me to play 46 minutes, I'm going to get some rest on the court. And they weren't able to find that for Durant. I don't know if that's how much of that is Nash finding it for him by the sets they draw up, or KD knowing how to find it for himself by where he goes on the court. But I do think the most interesting thing Scottie said was pointing the finger at Nash a bit, who has skated in most quarters except for here, because I thought that was a huge part of the reason the Nets aren't still playing.
You're totally right. And here's the thing, Broussard, and I want your take on this. You wrote hundreds of columns, thousands of columns. A few turns of a phrase take something that seems incendiary or seems subtle and can turn it incendiary. So what if Scottie Pippen said this? And I think it gets his point across. Kevin Durant is a great player, but he went home, and that wasn't his ultimate goal. I think he should spend the offseason and figure out, like all great players do, how to get even better. And one way that I think he can get better, what LeBron James has really mastered, is ways to have his other teammates go to the next level. And then this is just me freestyling. Like, you've seen LeBron in his career take Ilgauskas. Like, wow, Ilgauskas is good. Wow, Mozgov all of a sudden deserves a big contract. Man, J.R. Smith sure is good. Wow, Alex Caruso, he should get some all-star votes. That's all because of LeBron's ability to get other teammates to another level. And I think it's a fair statement to say great players always look for something to add to their game. And maybe KD can do that too. I don't feel like that's an incendiary comment, and I feel like that's what Pippen was trying to get across, but it came out a little hotter than he wanted it to.
Yeah, I think it was fair, especially the first half of your column. That was very well written, Wilds. I give you credit for that. But I don't look. Kevin Durant's an entirely different type of player than LeBron James. Kevin Durant is not the facilitator that LeBron is. He's more of a pure scorer. That's why, like I said, in some ways he's easier to play with because he's not going to dominate the ball. He's not going to over-dribble. You kind of fit him in. I guarantee you, Kyrie enjoys playing with KD more than with LeBron just because of it makes more room for Kyrie to do his thing. And so, and here, the thing, Nick, with the exhaustion, can we see the last shot again? Because I'm not, you know, I don't blame all of this on Steve Nash. We're trying to win a game 7. I got to go with my dog. Look at everybody else. Stop it right there. Look at his 4 teammates. They're just standing literally on the left side of the... That's what timeouts are for. That's James Harden over there. I get Joe Harris and Bruce Brown and all that. Why is James Harden acting like he's a ninth man?
Call timeout right there.
That's ridiculous.
And
that's what it was
Steve
the entire overtime and the end of fourth quarter. And so if they would have given Harden Durant some help, then he can rest on the court, Nick. But when they're just giving him the ball saying, go do it, big guy, it's hard to get a little break on the court.
Big guy.
Yeah, I mean, just to close the loop on this coaching thing, man, the reason why I always push back on you, Nick, when you don't crush Steve Nash, you just call it how you see it. And yes, he is inexperienced, but at the end of the day, great players, they overcome coaching. Great players, they call their own shots. We can't, that's why when we have this conversation with Giannis, when Giannis always says, well, I did this because Bud told me to do it, and we crush them in the media. You hear Shaquille O'Neal doing it. We do it on their show. People doing their other show because we're like, that is counterculture to sports. That's counterculture to superstars. Superstars always say, you know, I'm going to go check myself back in this game, or coach, I'm taking this shot, or no, I'm going to go guard that man. So when you talk about the Nets, you got 3 great players there, and Kevin Durant is more than capable of saying, yo, coach, let me get on the block. Like, this is what I'm going to do. You see LeBron James do it. You see CP3 do it. We saw the late Kobe do it. So that's my whole thing. Even in football, how many times do we see Peyton Manning or even Aaron Rodgers get the play call in and then do this, wave off the coach saying, no, I'm not calling that play, and they call their own deal. So I just think there's more to the story than just blaming the coach.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, well, Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals is set for tonight. Then on Sunday, Bucks-Hawks Eastern Conference Finals Game 3, and that one is featured on the free-to-play Fox Bet Super 6 app. I'm sure both Scottie and Kevin Durant will be watching that. Download the app, answer 6 questions for your shot to win $1,000. Let's talk some Dallas Mavericks. They are reportedly close to hiring Jason Kidd as their next head coach. How should Luka feel about the hire? We'll tell you. Talk about it next. This is First Things First on a Friday morning. Back here, First Things First, it's time for stories to start your morning, sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve. Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals, Suns and Clippers. For Paul George, he needed a little redemption after a brutal end to Game 2. Those 2 missed free throws still fresh on his mind. Last night, not bad, 27, 15, and 8. For the Suns, they got CP3 back, but he and Devin Booker combined to shoot just 10 of 40 from the field. Not good enough to beat them last night. Clippers win. They take Game 3. Brandon, did Paul George and the Clips convince you they can still win this series, beat the Suns?
No, Jenna. You know, if I'm a betting man like a Nick Wright, and you look at just the probability of them coming back from a 0-2 deficit 3 series in a row, I'm going against them. You know, and I know I picked them and I was high on them all year, and I still am. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of playoff P, turning into playoff P, getting over that hump and getting it done after missing 2 free throws. Like, I absolutely love what I saw last night. But the Suns are the most complete team and the most balanced team in the NBA, and it's not a Cinderella story. It just didn't just turn on when the playoffs started. This has been happening all year. I mean, come on, Wiles, think about this. Are we really are we expecting Booker and CP3 to go 1 for 1,000 from the field? Or, come on, really? No, it's not happening. And then my baby, Campaign had 2 points. Nick, I just asked you to consider putting Campaign on your top, list of guys under 25 or however old he is. Like, Campaign, let's go, baby. So no, they don't have a chance because the Suns were completely off last night. Booker still adjusting to this mask, this broken nose. Yeah, they played great defense. They played great defense all year, but they're going to step up to this challenge, and they'll probably close them out in 6 Wilds.
Ooh, I don't know about that. Well, I'll tell you what. The show's winding down, and I've got an appointment at the local floral shop here, and I'm going to buy multiple bouquets for Patrick Beverley to give him his flowers, since I seem to be the only one on the planet that will say, Patrick Beverley, you deserve it. Because if anyone else shuts a superstar down, they get the credit. Oh, PJ Tucker, you did a great job on KD. If Drew Holiday ever shuts down Trae Young, we'll be hanging from the rafters with joy. And if Clint Capella could shut down Giannis, oh, great job, Clint Capella. You should be an all-star. But Patrick Beverley holds Devin Booker, if we can show the graphic, to one of the worst shooting nights of his career. And it's like, no, he just plays out of control. He's just a pest. No, he's not, everybody. He's a genius. He's the spark plug of the Clippers defense. And, Nick, as an added bonus, when the guy hits a 3, it's like a dagger through your heart. Like, oh, my gosh. Now Patrick Beverley's hitting threes, too. The guy is playing fantastic. Devin Booker did not want this ball. He's like, oh, get rid of this. Devin Booker was unconscious. Patrick Beverley stepped up. Nobody wants to give him credit. Nick, you were bashing him the other day when he made a great play and the ball went off of Devin Booker's hand. You wanted to change the rules. He's so darn good. So Patrick Beverley, great job. He keeps playing like this. The Clippers have a real chance to steal a series.
Wild's going to send me into the weekend angry and looking like a jerk, and I resent him for it. All right, first let me say on the Clippers, it's the 5th time they've de facto faced elimination this playoffs. They're 5-0. Credit to them. And I will give credit to Patrick Beverley. Good. He had started 41 of 42 career playoff games. Ty Lue took him out of the starting lineup early in the playoffs, took him out. He was getting DMP coaches' decisions. He stayed ready. He stayed into it. And to Brandon's point, the other big thing that happened last night, Campaign, who was so big in Game 2, hurt his ankle in Game 3, so that is something to monitor. But I will not allow a Patrick Beverley love fest on this show. I won't allow it. I am going to use my status as with Jenna, the 2 senior members of this staff, to say never again. He's the dirtiest player in the league. The other guys in the league tell you repeatedly he tricks the media into thinking he's a great defender because he's always out of control. He's always running around. And you're right, Wilds. It is a backbreaker when he hits a 3 because it's so shocking when he hits a 3. So, no, I'm not going to let Patrick Beverley get the credit for Devin Booker. He played well last night, sure. Devin Booker also was playing with a broken nose and a face mask. And the Suns hadn't lost in a month. There's only been 3 teams in the last decade in one postseason to reel off double-digit win streaks. The Warriors with KD and Steph, LeBron's Cavs, and the Spurs actually did it once with Kawhi and Tim Duncan before losing 4 straight in the conference finals a decade ago. The Suns had won 9 straight, Brandon. They were due for a bad game. I give the Clippers credit, but without Kawhi, it's a bridge too far, and Patrick Beverley ain't going to carry him. He's not going to carry him anywhere except someone in the infirmary that he injures with this dirty play, Jenna.
Just real quick, Jenna. I understand all of that.
Yeah.
But I'm still signing your name to your card, to the card that I'm sending Patrick Beverley, like my mom does to my dad's birthday card. I'm still signing your name.
Quick, take your pick before we leave you for the weekend. Hawks Bucks Game 2 tonight. Atlanta up 1-0. Brandon, who you got?
Oh, I'm gonna go with Giannis and the Bucks. I don't see Middleton having a down night. I see Giannis doing what he's always done, 30 and 10. So I'm going with the Bucks.
Well, for the 2 consecutive weeks, I'm going to say the same thing. Tonight's the night that the Bucks get back to their 3-point shooting average. It's got to hit eventually.
At some point.
I'm going to pick the Bucks, Jenna, but a take to take you into the weekend. Yeah. If the Hawks win tonight, they're winning the title.
Wow!
If the Hawks win tonight, they're going to win the whole thing. It's at some point, it's got to be
Have a great weekend.
The Bucks win.
See you Monday.